Mark, you were talking about Christmas tree shopping in October.
Yeah, I know. And to elaborate, it is because for the last, oh gosh, 17 years, I suppose it must be, we've been getting real trees. You know, there's been a few, most of the times you just buy them pre cut. There's been one year that we cut down our own, and that was less fun than I anticipated. Um, but now that the kids are older, we've decided we were going to try and shop for a decent looking artificial tree and do away with the real trees because the cost of those keeps getting higher and higher, it
Yeah.
seems. And you know, a couple $100 or a few $100 on a artificial tree is about an equal number of 3 or 4 years, I suppose it would be, worth of buying real ones. And then of course you don't have the mess of the pine needles, which never used to bother me so much, but because they vacuum up real easy. So yeah, that was earlier today.
Where did you
And
go?
we went to Michael's initially, and I think Christmas tree manufacturers are not exactly being entirely honest about their Christmas tree descriptions. Um, I think they overestimate the height of their Christmas trees. I think it's a bit of a conspiracy.
Well, do tell. I mean, this is something that we need to go over immediately.
Well, first of all, if you ever go Christmas tree shopping for artificial trees, department stores almost always put them up on a pedestal somewhere. They're up on a platform. I assume to make them look taller than they really are.
Do
But
we
then
need a disclaimer
a disclaimer. Yeah.
for all of our younger viewers, if we have any. uh, this is what you have to look forward to when you hit those middle
Yeah.
years. Talking about Christmas trees.
middle age adult problems.
Oh,
Episode 1. No, they in the heights, of course, of these trees range from, just the little toy ones that are a few feet high and up to like 9 foot, 10 foot
what did you just
artificial
say?
trees. Hmm?
Did you just say? What did you just say? The toy ones that are how high?
2 or 3 feet.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody. Anyway, never mind. Where was I? Oh yeah. So anyway, we're looking through Michael's here locally, and they've got, I don't know, 10, 12 different artificial trees that are on display, and most of them are pre-lit, and some of them have the false snow on it and all that crap. But they all seem to way overestimate the actual height of the tree. And it's, we don't have huge ceilings in our house, so it's upstairs. We can put probably an 8 foot tree in there. And there was this one. We were looking at it. We saw the box, so we were looking for the example in the store, and it was supposed to be a 6 foot tree. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, there is no way this is 6 feet. And of course, it looks like it because it's up on a table, which of course is table height, and then the tree on top of that. So sure, it looks tall, but I'm thinking to myself, it's easily 5. There's no way. They're all lying. Tree manufacturers, artificial tree manufacturers, they're lying about the height of their Christmas trees. And it's
Well,
somebody needs to do something, I'm telling you.
well, folks, you heard it here first.
We didn't buy a
Interesting.
tree in the end. We decided that they were way too expensive for, buy buy a 5 foot tree when you're paying for a 6 foot tree, I suppose, if you could look at it that way.
Either way, you're spending how much for the artificial tree?
Well, anywhere from what, like 300 to $500-$600 depending on.
Okay, so we'll say
What you want.
$500.
Yeah,
How much is a tree, fake tree, or a real tree? Sorry.
they're closing on like $100.
So in 6 years, you've made your money,
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
and that
yeah,
tree will last forever.
yeah. Oh yeah, and they're a heck of a lot better now. At least they seem to be than the ones I remember as a kid, like the artificial trees we used to have.
I'm
Whereas they
still
would,
trying to get the image of you with a tape measure in Michael's measuring trees.
it was even more awkward when I tried to climb up on top of the table to prove that I was taller than this 6-foot tree, and I am not 6 feet tall.
Maybe it's 6 feet with the stand that they sell separately in aisle 40.
Ah,
Yeah, so maybe some fine print there, I suppose, but I still think it's false advertising.
Or with the tree topper on top.
interesting. Because see, we've had an artificial tree for about 20 years because we didn't want to have the needles and stuff like that, and the cats would just eat it, or the dogs would drink the water that we put in it. So we bought like a I think I spent $300 back in 2010 on this one, and it lasted a long time. But with the house we're in now, we didn't have the space, so I went out to, I think it was Canadian Tire last year, and bought it's only about maybe 2 feet wide, and so at the bottom, and it's, of course it tapers off, but it's about 7 feet tall, and I can confirm it's 7 feet tall because it's slightly taller than I am at 6'3". So and this one's great because we can just you don't have to worry about putting the branches on it, or moving the branches around, and because a lot of the fake ones, they come apart into various different pieces. This thing it's stagnant. We could put a garbage bag over it at the end of the year, sort of tape it up or tie it up, put it in the corner of the basement, and then just bring it out and put it up.
Yep, that's not as fun as going to a department store and pawing through, 3 dozen different what used to be live trees, and picking one, fighting it up onto the top of a vehicle, tying it down, driving gingerly back home, reefing it through the front door, setting it up, watering it every day. I just don't don't understand the fun.
Jeez, you sold me.
Yeah. In our case, it's what's worse is after the season's over, and then you've got this tree that is nearly bare because most of the pine needles have fallen off because you purchased it so early in the season, and
Well, I mean, you're buying it in October, 20th.
not
That's really early.
if it was a
Christmas
real one.
Well, what would that be? The
Artificial,
25th of
remember?
October?
Perhaps. But anyway, yeah, and then by the time we haul the tree out again in the middle of winter, of course, because it's usually January if it makes it that long, we then end up leaving it in the backyard. It becomes nesting material or for area birds and squirrels.
I always love the Jerry Seinfeld bit where he talks about Christmas trees, and he said, it's one day you wake up and there's a tree in the house, and you just throw it in the car and just open the door and kick it out as you're driving. It's like a mob hit. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the real trees, and the artificial one is so much more convenient, and it doesn't smell.
That's what I like about the real trees is the smell. I prefer a real tree, really, but as we get older and it become less of an ordeal for the season because the kids are older, going through the whole rigmarole of getting a real tree seems less important, I guess, as it used to.
Yeah, it's whenever I know it's not reality, but whenever I picture getting a real tree, I always picture Christmas Vacation at the beginning of the film, where they trudge through the forest to find that giant fucking tree that then he forgets the saw, and they have to root it right out of the ground and drive home with it.
Yeah, that was the year before last for us. The one and only time I've ever attempted to cut down a real tree for us on our own. Yes, we went to a farm Yes, it was all paid for. It was overly expensive to go through the hassle of cutting our own tree down and then fight our way through the trunk of this tree with the hacksaws that they provided. That all
Hacksaws?
hacksaws, yeah. It was like, yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. They were a hacksaw, but for wood or
Okay.
trees, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
And none of the blades were sharp, and some of them were loose. It was just not as quintessential Christmas tree cutting as you picture in your head, I guess.
Well, you certainly paint a very lovely picture of this idyllic procedure here.
This is after spending like an hour wandering the lot looking for that perfect Christmas tree that you can cut down.
Have you ever seen the upside down trees
Yes. Yeah.
that you could put in your house?
Yes.
That is bizarre. Because what some people do is they get these fake roots and they put it on so it looks like the trees are growing out of their ceiling.
That
Seems very strange. But then there's the old Charlie Brown cartoon where they go looking for trees and he knocks on one because it's made of steel.
Yeah. So that was our bit of an adventure today.
Interesting. So do you foresee more visits to other department stores looking for said trees?
Oh, probably.
And this begs the question, will you be taking your tape measure with you?
Well, it depends on the department store, I guess. Because if we're going to Canadian Tire, for example, I'll just borrow a tape measure from the tool department. Carry it over there with me.
Just walk over to one of those, the kids who couldn't care less. Walk over to those guys and just say, in a huge fake anger, and say, "This tree's not tall enough." Just see what happens, and then record it for us.
Well, I think that if they're going to state on the packaging that the tree is 7.5 feet, it needs to be at least 7.5 feet.
Oh, I would agree with you.
If not a little taller.
It was before they jammed it in the box.
Well, you have a fair point. If you take all of the little fake tree branches and you straighten them straight up, maybe you get there. But some of these that we saw today, they were just lying. Oh boy, yeah. Such is my life.
Interesting. So the next question I have is, this is the age-old question, has been debated for centuries. When do you put the tree up, and then when do you take it down?
Well, if it's a real tree, as late as possible and as early as possible. That's just how it needs to be.
All right. Well,
or do you mean when it's appropriate? When is the earliest time?
Yeah. So for us, we put it up because my birthday is November 29th. And so there's a de facto rule, because I'm not a huge Christmas fan of, you could put it up December 1st, just please don't put it up before my birthday. That's all I ask.
Yeah, I'm with that. I would say has to be at least in December, because I don't get into the so-called Christmas spirit until like 2 days before Christmas.
And even then it's a stretch. But then ours goes down. Usually it depends on when Christmas falls during the week. If Christmas falls on a weekend or like a Friday or a Thursday, usually my wife takes it down within a couple of days just to get it out of the way. But if if Christmas falls on a Monday, she will try and keep it up past New Year's. But I've said, I don't care when you take it down, just please don't put it up for my birthday. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? You've been awfully quiet, so I assume that you put yours up January 1st and you take it down December 30th.
Well, I don't have much of a tree. I have what Mark labeled earlier.
I didn't label your tree. As soon as you asked the question, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Whoops.
So I think mine's a good little 3-foot tree. I don't have the room for a full-size tree.
I completely get it. And I probably do exactly the same.
I don't know, mid-November-ish if there's snow. And then I don't take it down until like spring. I like it up when snow's around.
Interesting. So snow is the caveat for you
Snow is the
too.
caveat, yeah.
Huh.
If there's snow, then a nice decorated tree. And then the cat lays underneath the tree. She's got somewhere to spend the winter.
Just I want to clarify this. Your cat can fit under a 3-foot Christmas tree?
She is surprisingly agile and liquid for a cat her size.
Liquid.
Now,
She just
yes.
flows around the base of the tree.
I was going to say, some people use like a blanket to sort of disguise the tree stand. Does your cat just encompass that whole space?
No, for the most part, yeah. We have a tree skirt that she lays on.
Interesting. Mark, when do you take yours down?
Well, it's hard for me to give you an honest answer at that because we are considering going with an artificial one. I mean, artificial tree, there's no pressure to get rid of the damn thing before all of the needles end up in our air registers in the floor. But, so I don't know.
I guess it would depend on if your tree is in the way, right? So our tree, one of the reasons we went smaller is because that way it wouldn't be as obtrusive in the room.
I think for
So
us,
you
it's
follow
just
us
whenever
somewhere.
we finally get sick of looking at it, which can vary from year to year. Because no matter what we do, the tree's going to be somewhat in the way.
Yeah, good call. I can agree with that. Now, what color lights do you put on it? Do you folks do colored lights or just white?
That's the interesting thing about artificial trees is you don't have to put any lights on them. They come pre-lit for the most part,
Yeah.
and you can
Aha.
change the color.
That's right. I was just gonna say you could. It's no different. That's basically the same thing as choosing your color of lights. Is you just go to the little box and push a button for white versus colored versus twinkling versus fading versus what? Some of them probably light up to music. I bet.
Interesting.
See, I've always wondered, not with Christmas trees, but Christmas lights, why anybody bothers putting them up and taking them down. Just put them up now, because you can change your LED lights to represent whatever holiday you hit. Right? Halloween, you can make them glow orange. Just leave everything up.
If one were to, drive by our place and specifically look at the gutters at the front of our house, you will probably notice that there is a string of Christmas lights around the front edge of our house at the gutters that have been there for at least a full 12 months or more. And
Interesting.
I've told everybody at the house it's that they're going to come down instead. I'll make that'll be the theme, right? Probably sometime next month. I'll be
Just
taking the Christmas trees down more so than putting them up.
show them the statistics on light installation accidents.
See, now I have to look this up.
I've dodged that bullet once. I'm not doing it again.
So that's what I said. This year I'm taking those down and they won't be going back up. We can still decorate. They just won't be on the roof line of the house.
Interesting. So here's an article from the National Post newspaper from 2015. It's the most recent one I could actually find. Headline: Yuletime calamity. Surprising number of Canadians suffer serious injuries while putting up Christmas lights. What does it say here? A new study documents a surprising number of serious, in some case deadly, mishaps involving Christmas lights. Where's the number here?
Well, I'm sorry, but I think if anybody is thinking of Christmas tree light or Christmas lights mishaps, everyone is going to immediately think of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh, yes.
Because I mean,
that's the Bible.
that's the epitome of Christmas light mishaps.
I'll wager a lot of young people have not seen that film.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
I think we forced our kids to watch it.
Oh, it's required viewing in our house as well. Along with my favorite Christmas film to watch is Franklin's Christmas, because I love Franklin the Turtle. So we watch Franklin's Christmas because there's no Bible stuff in it at all. It's just Christmas. But it says here that let me see. So it's a quote from the
Christmas is Bible stuff, right?
well, but they treat this more as like the
Uh-oh.
original Christmas, which is just like Yuletide, sort of getting together and giving gifts and eating food and stuff. But this article about Christmas light injuries says so it's a life altering event for a lot of people. Seeing that I would say is fairly depressing, especially the time of year, says Dr. Chad Ball, University of Calgary surgery professor. There's so far in that year, like in the fall leading up to Christmas, 40 severely injured patients with life-threatening injuries from putting up Christmas. So 14 times as many people as any other holiday. That's a lot of people. Although, if further reading from this article, it does look like the whoever's lobbying them to hire the professionals to do it. And I must say, as a child, that's an industry I never ever thought I'd see, was professional Christmas light installations.
Well, a lot of people don't want to get up and climb on a ladder.
Or can't.
That's true.
Yeah, or simply can't do it.
Or just have enough disposable income that can just pay somebody else to risk their lives putting up Christmas tree or Christmas lights.
I guess. But you touched on something a moment ago, Ryan. It's going to Christmas movies. What is your, let's say, favorite or top 3 Christmas films that you've watched?
Die Hard.
I was
Die
just
Hard,
gonna say, I'm not in camp Die Hard when it comes to Christmas movies. I get it, but
Fuck you.
no. I'm not saying I don't like the movie.
That's going to be in. I'm going to post 1 million comments, and that's going to be all the comment right there.
Oh, I know. There is a pretty vocal following of people that will insist that Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2, Christmas movies.
Yep.
Scrooged.
They even have Christmas music in Die Hard, and
Yes.
Christmas lights, and Santa Claus.
Well, it happened at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And they have
so
the
sorry.
state-of-the-art limo in the first one with state-of-the-art cassette player.
That's true. So what?
Oh, I gotta
Wow,
find the title for this thing. I always forget it. I used to love it as a kid. Christmas movie. What the heck? All right, you guys talk. I'm gonna see if I can find it.
All right, so Ryan, you had Die Hard and, sorry, you said Scrooged?
Well, you get Die Hard, Scrooged, yeah. You get Die Hard 2, which is another Christmas one. They kind of go hand in hand, though. Die
Oh
Hard.
yeah, I would say that Die Hard is Die Hard, yeah.
What's another Christmas movie? Well, you get some of the animated ones, right? Like
Mhm.
Garfield's Christmas is great. Charlie Brown Christmas. Drawing a blank. Usually I can rhyme off tons.
Which is your favorite to watch?
Favorite movie to watch? One I've always watched every Christmas is Scrooged with Bill Murray.
Mm-hmm.
It's just stupid funny.
There we go. That's the one I'm thinking of. Way back from 1985,
Debbie Does Dallas.
Holy.
The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. I loved that movie as a kid.
What about the
Life
Santa
and
Claus
Adventures
movie?
of Santa Claus.
I would be surprised if many people are going to recognize it.
Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. I have never ever, like, I'm looking at it now, I have never ever heard of that.
No, I've not either.
Wow, that looks very pagan. I like the look of that.
It is. I think. I don't know why. I guess it's so different, and it's not your typical Christmas movie, even though it's like
So
it's a
you
soft
watch
motion.
you watch pagan Christmas movies at Christmas, right? Which a movie presumably sounds like it's more Halloween oriented. And at Halloween, you're shopping for Christmas trees.
I got to check this movie out. This looks interesting. Is it claymation?
I don't know if it's stop motion at least, so I'm going to say yes, probably claymation. Yeah.
What's the full title of it again?
The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, and it shows Santa Claus with like,
Okay, here we go.
Cernunnos, like the pagan god, who with the deer antlers. That's what Santa looks like.
Oh yes, that
It is not like anything you've ever seen before, as far as like.
I have
Christmas
never
movie.
heard of that. I'll have to check that out.
I'm going to watch that tomorrow. I'm downloading it now.
There's quite a few stop motion animation because that's what it looks like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is for sure. Yeah.
All right, so that's one, Mark. What are the others?
I don't know. Ones that
There's
I
one
like.
Christmas movie that I absolutely hate, and I'm just waiting to see if either of you mention it.
Sound of Music.
Is that a Christmas movie?
No, it's not.
I don't know. Kind of like the ones that are more obscure, because everybody's going to rhyme off things like Christmas Vacation. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is one that we watch every year,
Yeah, classic.
just because it's entertaining.
Big Black Christmas.
And I swear, doesn't matter how many times I watch that movie, when the cat gets fried underneath the lazy boy while they're having dinner or whatever, makes me laugh every
Oh yeah.
time. I don't know why, but it does.
Like I love cats, but that sound of like that. All right, so you've got those. What else you got? Give me one more.
What about Gremlins? Great Christmas.
Ooh,
Ooh. Really?
I don't-
Yeah, I guess it does. The very first one takes place at Christmas, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Man, I haven't watched those. I should watch those again. Actually, I should force the kids to watch those.
I was just thinking I'm going to download them and force the kids to watch them.
And I bet they'd like it. I don't know. I don't know if I could pick another one. It's a weird category because
Another good
It's-
one. Krampus. Great one.
Oh, Krampus, yeah.
What's the one? What's your
Yeah.
hated Christmas movie?
Oh, I'm going to wait till Mark gives one more because he's thinking. I don't want to say
I
it.
don't know. What I'm doing is scrolling, trying
For
to
Christmas trees, we know.
No.
This
We've
one's
moved.
nice.
We've moved beyond that because I'm really
All right,
not
well-
sure.
While you're looking, I'll give mine. All right. So my favorite, as I mentioned, just mainly because of the kids and about how much like we've watched it every year since my oldest was born, is Franklin's Christmas, then Christmas Vacation, then it's a tie between Violent Night,
Oh, that's a good one.
which was fantastic, and the original Christmas Carol, the black and white one with what the fuck is his name? Like the original like Scrooge movie, because it's
That's
so
quite good as well.
just because it reminds me a bit of like, I don't want to say Nosferatu, but there's the scene as a kid watching that with my parents back in the early 80s where Jacob Marley comes back in Scrooge's bedroom and he's all tied up in chains and he's screaming. That was quite powerful for a kid to watch, because it was like a horror thing. And then Scrooge sort of seeing his own tombstone and stuff, and it was I like to watch that. That is good family memories for me. But the most hated one that I can't stand, and every time someone talks about it, I just want to leave the room, is A Christmas Story.
I would agree with you there because it
It's
is
It's funny.
so. I don't. Yeah, I agree. I can't stand it either.
It makes me cringe just thinking about it, and every time anyway, it's just so stupid. but that's my other one. And the now here's one. Do you consider A Nightmare Before Christmas to be a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie?
Both.
Interesting.
It's got elements of
Yeah,
both.
it can go either or.
Interesting. Okay. Mark, do you have one more?
No. I guess if I were to throw one out there, it would probably be um, The Grinch, or How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Jim Carrey version, like the live
That's
action.
Really? I always preferred the original animated.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would either or, I guess.
That came out in 1966.
Oh yeah. I have a 4K
Quite a
copy
while
of
ago.
that. Why I have a 4K copy of that, I have no idea, but it's like widescreen and it's really crisp. But the one thing also about A Christmas Carol, the original one, which I like, if you ever have a summer and you want to read a book, read some Charles Dickens, because the story about the Christmas Carol, it's a snapshot of Christmas before Coca-Cola took over, just a decade later. So there's nothing to do with Santa Claus. There's nothing to do with Jesus at all. It's just how the English celebrated Christmas in the late 1800s. And really it was just sort of getting together and decorating a tree and very old pagan traditions. And there's nothing about Santa at all. And all the kids running around getting gifts, none of them are asking for anything from Santa Claus, because at the time he didn't really exist until Coca-Cola kind of invented him years later. So it's a fascinating snapshot of that period in history.
Well, that's why you're gonna like that stop motion animated one that I mentioned, because it is definitely commercialized.
What about the best Star Wars special of all? The holiday special.
Say what you want about that. That used to be one of the worst things I'd ever seen, until I saw The Acolyte and those. Really, I mean, honestly, because it was so stupid. But then you watch it now, and it was stupid, and it knew it was being stupid, right? I mean, it knew that it was ridiculous, like having B. Arthur in a Star Wars movie.
Well, I'm sure there was a lot of experimentation with mind-altering substances during its creation.
It certainly seems like that, yeah. But it's what I also found interesting, if I'm remembering this correctly, was it's Mark Hamill before his motorcycle accident. And so, like when you see him in Empire Strikes Back, when he's attacked by the beast on Hoth, he has like his face is kind of messed up.
Mm-hmm.
They put that in there solely because of that bike accident. So it's Mark Hamill just before that, which was, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, it was that was. Have you seen it, Mark? The Star Wars Holiday Special?
I don't know if I have.
You'd seen it, you'd know it was Scar.
Yeah.
I would. It's probably going to be one of those things that I would remember it once I saw it.
Oh,
again,
yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yep.
But I don't recall specifically.
You know, a really obscure Christmas one that stuck with me as a kid was Jim Henson's The Christmas Toy.
Oh, right.
I don't know if you remember any of that, where all the toys come alive, and there's a little tiger and a mouse. I think the mouse has wheels.
And isn't there a donkey or a horse?
There's, I don't know, like 40 different animals and toys, and they all come alive.
His stuff, like from our generation, his stuff was like the best.
That one is kind of stuck with me.
And that's another one, is The Muppet Family Christmas. That I forget what year that came out, but it was like you had the Sesame Street cast, the Muppet cast, you had the Fraggles, and you had like Jim Henson himself shows up in it, right? So you had all of these things all in one show, and for a kid in the 80s, it was the best thing that ever happened. But I have to watch that Christmas Toy. I totally forgot about that. That's 1986.
Yeah.
what year was the Muppet Family Christmas? Was 87, so that would have been their next special. So I would have been 7 when that came out. Mark would have been 40.
Hey,
So this is a good segue then into, because there's a lot of singing in those movies. What's your best movie soundtrack or film score that really stuck with you?
you just
Give me-
couldn't resist putting that out there, could you?
Oh, because it's such a, because some people would say, like, anyone from our generation, if you're out in public in any capacity and you hear the first line of the Star Wars music, whether it's the Imperial March or the beginning of the Star Wars, like that music, sometimes I'll be out and somebody has it on their ringtone, and it's one of those things that you have out of 50 people in the crowd, at least 30 turn because they it's so recognizable.
That's the interesting thing about creating a score specifically for the movie,
Mhm.
like Star Wars or The Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. As soon as you hear that music, it instantly takes you back to that moment.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and that's not done often anymore. It seems, anyway. A
No.
lot of the times they're borrowing music that's already been created by artists, right? And just licensing it for use in the movie.
Yes, they do.
And I don't... there's a time and place for that, I guess. But it's not as good, I think, as
If it's
as
done
being something
correctly,
that's...
if you do it right, you marry the perfect moment to the perfect music. As soon as you hear the music, all you're ever going to flash back to is that scene. Like, let's say the opening of Guardians.
yeah.
As soon as you hear that song, all you can think about is the very beginning where he's kicking the rat around.
But I would also say that Guardians of the Galaxy, when did that come out? About 10 years ago?
I use that because it's a quick
Yeah.
and easy.
But if you think
or
about...
Danger Zone, isn't it? Is
But
that even the title?
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I think that was made specifically for Top Gun, though, right?
Was it?
Oh, I think so.
I believe so.
Oh. I didn't know that.
But-
I didn't think it was.
But if you look at Guardians as an example, that's, you can almost pinpoint the moment of the last 20 years when film studios realize that we don't need scores. We can just have these obscure songs and make them popular, because Guardians did it, and then Suicide Squad did it, and then Guardians again, and all of a sudden the scores were out of the films, and it was these obscure, like "Come and Get Your Love" by Redbone, that song you're talking about, Ryan.
Yeah.
That's from like the 1970s, and I would
Yeah.
wager that 99% of the planet never even heard it before. And it's coincidentally that was an all Native American band, which is interesting. But because Guardians had a lot of because it was that based on that mixtape, right? So it was some popular songs, but it was other less popular songs.
And that's all due to James Gunn, right? He's
Yeah.
slightly older than we are. His love of those songs.
And that's what I worry about his new DC movies, is if they're all going to be like that. I want to get back to the scores. Like when you think of, when I think of superheroes, I think of the Christian Bale's Batman movies, right? And that really intense orchestra, like when he's first standing up as Batman in the Batcave, when all the bats are swirling around him.
Yeah.
Like my head goes to that immediately.
Spider-Man had it as well. The Raimi ones, anyway.
I find in most cases soundtracks to movies are they're songs or music that is recognizable in a lot of cases, but ultimately difficult to listen to otherwise, unless it's something that's been pulled from another artist that they've created, for their album and then put into the film. Then it becomes different, because you're blurring the edges between a soundtrack for a movie versus just covers of various album songs from other artists, right? But so I couldn't reference a favorite soundtrack I don't think.
Oh, come on. We all know it's Mortal Kombat.
Well, there was a time. Yeah, I would have
Or The
completely
Matrix.
agreed.
Right?
Uh,
They were way overplayed when we were young.
They were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the Mortal Kombat.
So,
Holy.
all right, Mark, give me 2 movies then that the instrumental score is something that you can immediately recognize and gives you goosebumps.
Oh, well. I mean, immediately on the top of that is going to be Star Wars.
Okay.
And really, all of their music was done as, only for the movies.
Hmm.
I don't know. I would say Terminator, but I don't know if that really counts because it's not
Oh,
really.
it definitely counts.
Yeah.
Definitely counts.
But I mean, it's instantly recognizable.
It's funny because when I showed my son
theme.
when I showed my son Terminator 2 at the beginning, just before you see the skull get crushed by the T-800, I turned to my son and I said, "You ask Ryan. Anyone from my generation immediately recognizes this music because it's just, yeah, it was just awesome."
I don't think that
All
it's
right,
terribly uncommon. A lot of people will recognize songs instantly from within the first second or two that they come on, if they're familiar enough with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not limited to just movie soundtracks.
That's true. Yeah, like mine would be Star Wars first, and then the Lord of the Rings, easily Lord of the Rings, and I always laugh because every now and then on like the YouTube shorts it'll come up with it's just like a silly thing where it'll say it's Peter Jackson saying to Howard Shore, "Okay, all I need is something really basic to show a bunch of fires on mountains being lit as they warn the people from Gondor warns Rohan." And it's just, no problem. And he gives you this really epic soundtrack for a nothing scene, right?
The original score that they did for the original X-Men movies would be practically instantly recognizable too.
Ah,
Batman.
Or Transformers would be another one, probably.
Yeah.
More the cartoon than anything, I think.
Now, Ryan, would you say that, because for me the best Batman one is the Batman the Animated Series, which kind of borrows from Tim Burton's soundtrack? Would that count? Like, I'd like to throw that one in there because the opening to Batman the Animated Series from the '90s, that is fucking epic.
Yeah, the animated. What is it? The Batman, the Mask of the Phantasm, the cartoon.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like one of the all-time best Batman animated shows or movies ever. Like the writing,
hands down.
But yeah, that would definitely count.
Okay, yeah, because that would be up there. But probably I adore Star Wars, but probably I would put Lord of the Rings ahead of that, just because the 3 films have recurring bits of the soundtrack, but they also have their own feel, right? So I would put I'd put all 3 Lord of the Rings movies there. Wow, I have to watch these again. I watch them at least twice a year, so maybe this weekend's the weekend.
Twice a year. It takes you half a year to get through all the extended versions.
It's only about 13 hours or 14 hours. It's not the end of the world.
It's exactly the same length as is it that shit one that's on Netflix now?
Shit one that was
Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon.
Oh. I had such high hopes for that.
I was going to say the same thing.
I was so disappointed.
Yes, also disappointed. And this so-called re-release director's cut that they keep talking about, like, damage is done. Like, why would you even bother with that? I never watched it. I can't be bothered.
I think I watched the first one, and I will say, out of the
I
get go.
watched the first one. Yes, sorry, I couldn't bring
effects
myself to rewatch it.
the effects were great as far as the special, like like the ships and stuff. I always love ships, but the second one, the script was horrible.
See,
It
and
was-
that's yeah, I agree. Yeah, awful.
And I just thought, what, like you had your opening act. Why regress that much? It was almost like they just sort of gave up.
Well, they
Like,
rushed
but
it. They rushed because they tried to cram too much into the allowed running time, or
Yeah,
the
that's
planned
yeah.
running time, and instead they gave up on too much potential storytelling because of that. Like,
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? You had mentioned that you, Adam, had seen the newest Hellboy.
Yes.
Not great effects, but you could tell. I think you used the words. It looked like a decent fan film.
Yes. Yeah.
So they stayed true to the lore for the most part. They tried to do the best they could with a shitty budget.
Yep.
And you'll allow that to slip by. But if they have no story, amazing effects,
Yep.
you're going to go, nah, I'm not. I'm going to pass.
Well-
I would put it, and I wouldn't even say that it was a fan film in any kind of disparaging way. I mean,
No,
they
that's
did.
not at all how I meant it. I meant it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I just mean that, because some fan films are just really, really, really corny. This one was, it looked like it had a fan film with a budget by people who cared about what they were doing. And it, like, Hellboy, my favorite Hellboy visually was the one with David Harbour. I thought that was the closest to because I've been reading Hellboy comics for years, and I thought that was the closest kind of looking.
is that the
this
one from
guy-
a couple years ago?
Yeah. But
yeah, it was different.
That one felt rushed too.
yes.
If they hadn't have rushed it, I think they could have done a decent
It just
job.
wasn't very polished. I think maybe, and saying the same thing, I guess.
From what I understand about it, and I could be wrong if I'm remembering incorrectly, but they had to get a movie out to keep the license, and I think that's why they went with the David Harbour version, because had they spent an extra month on that movie, it would have been fantastic. But this one, I would encourage you to check it out, because it's set in the Appalachian Mountains in the 1950s, and it's like a very witchcrafty, neat film. Like it's like a Hellboy comic. It was pretty good. I'd recommend it.
You know what the movie industry's problem is, and actually extends well beyond the movie industry, because entertainment industry. So I'm going to include video games in this. They've fallen victim to their own hype buildup.
Oh yeah.
They really have, and they're all guilty of it. Gone are the days where you would go to a video store, you had no idea what was in there, you'd browse the aisles, you'd pick a movie that looked decent, or maybe somebody told you that was good, or you just simply like the cover, which is generally how I chose movies, because I always judge a book by its cover. And
Says the guy with no favorite movie.
well, maybe that's part of the reason why, though. And now, the expectation that you are basically given on any particular film or movie, video game, show, you name it, is preconceived from all the hype that's been released on it. You can't get away from it, whether it be on social media or news or advertisements or what have you. The mystery of seeing something new for the first time is almost ruined because of all the hype building that they do for all of the entertainment outlets that we have now. The video game industry has suffered huge from that.
Yeah, and I think the Hellboy is a good example of that, because I knew, aside from obviously knowing the character, I knew nothing about this movie going in, because it didn't really hit theaters very well, if at all, and it just popped up on my download list the one day, and I thought, oh right, that they were making that movie. So I went in not knowing anything, and maybe that made it better. Similar to Godzilla minus one. I mean, that is a Godzilla movie. You know what you're getting, but I had no idea how fucking in depth the backstory of the Japanese characters were. I was expecting something really campy like they've had before, but this was a good, solid film. But
Yeah, I don't know.
but there's another soundtrack of are the Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
What? Really?
No, not at all. No.
Well, not the American ones anyway.
I kind of like the soundtrack from the original Pacific Rim.
Okay,
That's a score though.
yeah, Del Toro,
sure,
yeah.
sure, same, but you kind of have to group the two together a bit. But I don't know why. It fit the movie, I think, really well. But I don't know if I'd call it memorable to the point where I would instantly recognize it.
One that always takes me back to I can picture it's a song from a film, but it takes me back to that moment in time where I was the first time I saw the movie. It's Predator. It's Long Tall Sally by Little Richard when they're flying in the helicopter. Right at the very, very beginning of the movie. Every time I hear that, wherever I am, I picture sitting at my friend Phil's house in like grade 7 or 8 watching that movie when we weren't supposed to. Because it would have been 87 or whatever year it was. And it's that song comes on when they're all in the helicopter, and my mind immediately goes there. Instantly.
Another fantastic Christmas movie.
Well, I think I told you over Thanksgiving there was the meme where it said something like 8 out of 10 husbands think that Predator is better than Marriage. I just laugh. Because it's a good movie.
It's a fantastic movie.